Hello, and welcome back to the next episode of This Healthy Life podcast. I'm very excited for my guest today. Edward O. Kim is the CEO of KEIRSEY, which is a human behavior research company, and he's also the president of KEIRSEY Foundation. He supports emerging leaders and is dedicated to helping people understand each other, and he's also my twin brother. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're looking at us and you're saying, there's no way that he can possibly be my twin brother, but I hope by the end of this podcast that you guys see how we are twins and hopefully are able to understand you and your family a little bit better and find your twin out there. So Edward, welcome. So happy to have you here.
Thank you. I actually often introduce myself as Eduardo, saying that I have a twin sister who's half Mexican. So when they see your photo and they see me, they're like, how does that work? They think I'm either lying or crazy or, whatever their thoughts are, it ends up being a fun experience.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. You guys are going to get it by the end of this, so you'll see. So Edward, start with maybe a little bit of an introduction about yourself. Sure. And what KEIRSEY is and how you got started with that.
Yeah. So I started way back as a teenager. I read a book by a guy named David KEIRSEY. And he was the first psychologist to write on the subject of personality types. So prior to him, there were some psychological assessments, but they weren't publicly accessible until he wrote a book on it. And so that book became a bestseller over time. And ironically, I had found out about that book while I was at a leadership conference of a large church in Chicago. The minister had held up that book. And so this is like about 30 years ago. And he said, if you want to understand leadership, you have to understand people. And he said, there's no other book that explains people better than this blue book right here. And it was the book, Please Understand Me by David KEIRSEY. And so I grabbed it, I took the test inside it, and then I found out I was a rational mastermind, an INTJ. If those letters have been floating around all over the place, he actually was the one that popularized tests like Myers-Briggs, DISC, and a lot of the personality assessments that you can find now all over the internet. I think if you do a Google search for like a personality test or anything on temperament or typology, you're going to find tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, maybe into the millions of hits for different sites you can go to. But at that time, there was nothing like that available. And so he's considered the OG of the whole industry. So fast forward years later, I was in strategy consulting, and I started realizing you can have the best plans, but if you don't have the people to execute those plans, then it doesn't matter. Yeah. The plans don't mean anything. You're not going to get anything meaningful or impactful done. And so I started saying that organizational effectiveness and life effectiveness really stems from people, understanding people and being able to leverage each other's talents and understand how to communicate with each other, team with each other, navigate conflict, be able to influence and lead. So I started looking around for who knows people better than anybody else. And I had remembered that as a youngster that I had taken his test and it described me. And I said, I wonder what they do. Yeah. And I wondered if they were still around. So I Google searched them and found that they had an online test available. And so I cold called them. And they said, I introduced myself. I said, I do strategy consulting. And I said, do you do any consulting? And they said, no, we don't, because consultants cost too much. It's too labor intensive. We're happy selling our books and doing an online test. We make money with people clicking on our site and by buying books as well. And so I said, well, I think if you don't do consulting, that you're going to become obsolete, because all your stuff then remains theoretical and it will eventually become outdated. And they said, well, how much do you make as a strategy consultant? And once I told them, they said, see, we're right. You guys are too expensive. We're not wanting to hire anyone like you or a whole army of you. And so we kept it simple. And I said, well, why don't we start a consulting company? And if it does well, it'll be like we're dating. And if it does well, then we'll tie the knot and become exclusive. If not, and you're right, I'll go back to strategy consulting. You go back to selling books and online tests, And long story short, it did much better than all of us anticipated, the consulting entity we started. And so then from then we got married, became exclusive. And over time, that consulting arm of KEIRSEY outgrew all the other companies they had with books, foreign rights, and like translations, online assessments, and other minor companies. Like they had their own publishing company. And so then over time, they had proposed that we merge all of them together under the name brand KEIRSEY, and asked me to be the CEO, not just of the consulting group, but of the entire enterprise. So then we evolved into, at that point, a human behavior research company. And that's what we focus on. We want to understand people in every domain there is in life, work, and play.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've studied just about every kind of human behavior, whether it be in the boardroom or the bedroom or in
any room.
Any room, yeah, you name it. It could be at a church, a synagogue, a mosque. It could be in the CIA interrogation room. But we've really looked at how people behave and why they behave the way they do. And from our framework, we've been able to really ascertain the key factors that drive human behavior. And now, I mean, compared to back then when a test was found in a book, now because we went online and now we're leveraging AI, we have more than, I stopped counting, but the last time I checked a couple of years ago, it was about 500 million plus people who've taken our assessment.
That's amazing.
Worldwide.
Very cool. So let's break down what these different temperaments are.
Sure.
So you mentioned Myers-Briggs and how the letters kind of overlap. So I'm going to let you kind of break down the four main temperaments, and then after that we can get into the sub-temperaments. And I'm really excited about this because about, what was it, like a year and a half ago, my husband and I did the training, and it's been so fascinating to us and like helped us so much in work and just like in understanding people and like, you know, when you meet people, kind of trying to figure out what temperament they are to best communicate with them and work with them. So I think it's just such a valuable tool, and I'm so excited to share this with the audience.
Cool. Yeah, I think what's going to be really cool is when you understand who you are and you understand who it is that you're interacting with. And it could be a romantic partner, a business partner. It could be a friend. It could be a colleague. It could be a customer. It could be your children, your parents. It doesn't matter. Human beings are human. And the way that to the extent that we can better understand each other, that's when we're going to be able to have healthier interactions and then also a healthier life.
Yeah.
And so we think that at the end of the day, human interaction and understanding of yourself and understanding of someone else, like self-awareness and social awareness, can be a huge factor in how you live out your day-to-day life so that you can live a long, healthy life. A life that is well and is prosperous. But let's get into the four temperaments. We have the artisan, the guardian, the idealist, and the rational. So a good metaphor to use is to talk about the lands that each of these temperaments reside in. So the artisans, we say, live in adventure land. Guardians live in checkbox land. Idealists live in potential land, and rationals live in complexity land. Okay, so what do these lands look like? Adventure land is the land of fun. It's the land of the physical senses, to see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. We often joke around with parents that if they have artisan children, that sex, drugs, and rock and roll are that much more tempting, enticing, and pleasurable for them. The rest of us, sure, we can engage in a lot of our hedonistic pleasures, but the artisans, they have the most fun with it.
They thrive off it.
They thrive off it, exactly. They're the most artistically inclined. They want they want to stand out. They're the kinds that cannot tolerate boredom. They're always exciting and spontaneous. They're always taking risks. They really are the people that when you go to, say, a party or some sort of social gathering, they're usually dressed the most fashionably. They're usually the most, they're the coolest of the bunch. They were often the most popular kids in school. The athletes, they're usually not the most studious. If anything, there's actually the highest dropout rate.
Wow.
Is artisans, because they just can't stand the boredom.
Yeah. The structure of it.
Yes. Yeah. Like our youngest, he's an artisan. I used to be able to say he's like Donald Trump when he was really little, but he has the same temperament type as Donald Trump, Mark Cuban, Madonna, Anna Wintour, Arnold Schwarzenegger, JFK. He actually dropped out of middle school. In the 8th grade, he decided to call it quits because he said school is stupid, useless, and boring. And so his name's Conrad. And in Trump-like fashion, when he dropped out, he started his own private school, called it Conrad Academy. So that's the artisan. They're usually very they do whatever they want. They don't care about what other people say. They sort of have a I don't give a shit kind of way of approaching life. The guardians, very different from the artisans. The guardians are the conservative. They live in, when we say they live in checkbox land, they get things done one by one. They have a to-do list. They live by the motto, if you fail to prepare, you're preparing to fail. So they often are working through thinking about what they need to do next. And it's usually made predictable because they have it right there. And they're working through their list day after day. They usually are cautious, steady. They are very methodical. They can't help but notice when things are not done. They live in the land of closure. They're the kinds of people that want things to be done the right way. Right and wrong is a big thing. They follow the rules. They're the kinds of people that want to do things appropriately. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, they
so
make
much
up
more structured compared to
very
the
structured.
artisan. Yeah,
very structured.
I cut you off, but you're going to talk about the different percentages of how many are artisan versus guardian.
Yes, see, she is my twin. She can read my mind, or she can read hers, and we think similarly. So the artisans represent about 30%, guardians 45%.
Okay.
So already there, 75%
of
are artisans and guardians. Yep. And then the other two are the idealists and the rationals. The idealists, we said that they live in potential land. This is the land of possibilities, the land of hopes and dreams. I joke around, say it's sometimes the land of unicorns and fairy tales and rainbows. It's a warm place. Yeah. People are warm, kind, compassionate, benevolent,
a lot of emotion.
A lot of emotion, yes. Like my wife, Suzanne, she's an idealist. She was a physician for almost 3 decades, and she was she's a warm, sweet, kind individual. So made for the kind of work that she did. I, on the other hand, could not make it as a physician. I mean, I think I could do something in research, but my bedside manners might not be the best. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the idealists, they are usually the soulful, spiritual dreamers. People that would fit in the idealist category or temperament type would be individuals like Oprah Winfrey, Nelson Mandela, Princess Diana was one, Joan Baez, Helen Keller. These are the folks that want to make a difference in the world. They want to help people and really see the inner workings of a person brought to a place of peace. They often are the humanitarians, they're the therapists, they are the people in ministry, in education. They really want to make a difference in people's lives. Finally, the rational. This is where we're twins. This is where we're twins. When my wife's phone rings, it doesn't say Edward or Eddie on it or Ed. It says Darth for Darth Vader. So rationals, we say they live in complexity land, and this is a lot colder in temperature than the idealist land where it's very warm. The rationals, they are utterly utilitarian. They're logical. They're usually a little bit more colder. They're a little bit distant and aloof. That's what makes them very objective. That's what makes them very analytical. They can explain theories and complex ideas, break them down, and be able to articulate a solution that they can derive from their analysis or from their theories or ideas. So usually they're much more driven by the intellect. They have a very strong mind, and they respect others who also have equally, I guess, that sort of par with each other when it comes to intellect.
All right.
Yeah. Any questions?
No, I think this is really clear so far. So now we're going to throw a little curveball at everyone and explain. So we've got the 4 temperaments going this way, but there's also 4 kind of sub-temperaments or subcategories of each temperament, which complexifies it a little bit more. But, you know, when you think about it, we all can kind of be placed into one of these 16 temperaments.
Yes.
So I'd love for you to kind of break down the substructures of each one.
Sure. So there's a lot of personality models on the market. We were the one that had 4 temperaments that came out publicly, but we recognized, Dr. KEIRSEY recognized, that human beings are far more complex than 4 types. And so then he was able to break it down into subtypes, 4 of each of the 4. So 4 times 4 equals 16. And they happen to correspond with the Myers-Briggs 16 types. So they're completely unrelated bodies of work. In fact, Isabel Myers, she was studying a guy named Carl Jung. Dr. KEIRSEY was not a big fan of Carl Jung. He thought he was a little bit crazy. But he came across her work that she took from Jung and formulated into these 16 types. And he said, he took her test and he came out INTP. And in those days, the descriptions that they had were like 2 sentences long. So instead of getting these massive reports on your temperament type, you would get a 1-pager that had all 16 on that page, and it'd be 2 sentences for each of the 16. And so when he looked at his, he said, oh my gosh, these 2 sentences really nail me. And so then he started wondering, does her model interface with his model? And what he noticed was that all the people who had N and T in their letters, so INTP, that's what he was. If you had ENTJ or INTJ or ENTP, those all have NT right there. And he said they all match with his rationals and all of his sort of variations of different rationals. And then he looked at the other letters and said all the people who had NF in their letters matched up with his idealists. Those happen to be the 2 middle letters for each. So he looked at, he said, so far so good. Half of her model, 8 of her personality types lines up with idealists and rationals. And he naturally looked at SF and ST, which are the 2 middle letters for the other ones, and it didn't match up. And so he's trying to figure out, okay, well, half works, but what is left there with the remaining 8 types? And then he noticed that all the people who had S and P in their letters and S and J in their letters lined up with his artisans and guardians. Those with S and P lined up with his artisans, and then those with S and J lined up with his guardians. And so then he had an interesting interfacing between the 2 models. Now, where we separate camp is, he says that Myers-Briggs, as much as they've done a good job at observing people, he says where they get stuck is they stay in the mind. And there's something called cognitive processes. And he says, well, what does a cognitive process look like? And he would argue, we're not mind readers. You can't see what's going on in somebody's mind. It's not observable. So
some people say they can, though.
We know what temperament types they are. They are usually, they go with their gut. You can call it whatever you want, their intuition, their feelings. And a lot of times it seems like it can be right, but what happens is they take their feelings and they project it onto the situation. Now, the thing is that if what they were feeling actually lines up with what is out there, then they're spot on.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, then they're so off that it's ridiculous.
Yep.
Right. What's funny is their feelings are so certain for them that if it doesn't line up, they actually question. They'll say, wait, are you sure you're not like that? Because I'm really sensing that you are. And I've had that done to me. I'd say, no, I think I know myself better than you do. But they want to convince me that they know something about me. And we'd say that that's not scientific. You can't know the inner workings of a person. They're not observable unless they become revealed. And how do they get revealed? They get revealed through behavior, through what people say and what people do. Where are we?
We were talking about the temperament. So that's the kind of subtypes. Yeah. So going back to that.
So the subtypes line up there.
Yep.
But we focus on observable behavior. We look at what people say and what people do. And we look at their talents. Like, what are their natural talents? Like, where we have similarities is that we're both very strategic. We're both very objective or purpose-driven. And those are the things that can be observed because we see fruit born from our efforts. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
It's not that I say I'm strategic but don't show any evidence of it. It comes out in the way we do business or the way it
comes out naturally.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we'd say inherent to all of the temperaments, you have your inborn natural strengths. Now, can you grow from there outside? Yes, of course. We have far more capabilities. So what we're describing is, we call it the core behavior or your core temperament. And then you've got a whole other developed layer as well. And so not every single rational is going to be identical. Or even if you get down to the 16, not every rational mastermind is going to be the same as another rational mastermind. It depends on who they are surrounded by, who they were influenced by,
so
how
nature
they grew.
Versus nurture.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Dr. KEIRSEY's view was not nature versus nurture. He said, let's change versus to via.
Yeah.
So it's nature via nurture, right? So you have your nature, and whatever goes on in your life will bring it out, will complement it, will supplement it, will make it grow to an extreme. We'd say that human behavior is much more complex. So these aren't boxes to put people into, rather they're introductions. They are starting places to get
understand
a sense of
yourself.
Exactly. And get a sense of how then to proceed with your life or how then to proceed with the relationship you have.
So let's touch on us being twins. So people
Sure.
are probably at this point wondering, like, how the heck are you guys twins? So,
Yes.
we started kind of diving into it, like talking about the structure of the 4 boxes going this way, the 4 boxes going down. So
Yes.
let's kind of break down the different levels. So I'm a field marshal. So
Yes.
I'm considered someone that must lead, which
Yes.
tracks with me very well. And then so you're a mastermind, which
Yes.
means that you're more inclined to want to win.
Yes.
And then below that, we've got people that must collaborate and then people that must accommodate. So I'd love for you to kind of talk a little bit about
Sure.
that, and then also share how we're twins and how we overlap.
Yep, absolutely. So I said that Erica is my half Mexican twin. Some people just like listen and they're like, oh, wow, that's really cool.
Doesn't even faze them.
It doesn't faze them. And then I know what their temperament type is or where their intellectual level is. But when I say that, it's not because I'm half Mexican.
Yep.
It's because we're very similar in temperament. So I'm somewhere actually between rational mastermind and rational field marshal. Like, some people would know me and they're like, oh my gosh, Ed's not a rational field marshal. Or some people that know me as more mastermind, like they'll say he's not a mastermind. He's a field marshal. So they get that confused back and forth. Even my wife, when she reads both, I remember when she first read the field marshal, she's like, "Oh my gosh, this is you." But then she read the mastermind, she's like, "Oh my gosh, this is also you," right? And it's not that I'm schizophrenic. It's the
can be right on the edge of both.
Yeah, exactly. And the difference is that you're more extroverted, I'm more introverted. But what I'd say is that you talk out loud more what I talk about inside. So I have more words with myself, whereas you have more words out loud.
Yeah.
Now, for me, because I talk for a living, it's like I'm paid to talk. So I have a lot of words outside. But for the number of words I have outside, I have far more inside. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that was like something that I feel like really shifted for me, because I was always thinking about it like this person's extroverted versus introverted. But you said it doesn't always have to be like that, because, there's obviously like introverted extroverts and extroverted introverts and stuff. But it's more about how you're processing information. Like I totally think out loud. Like I'll say stuff and Adam's like, "Are you talking to me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm also just thinking." So it's like I definitely do things more externally, or like think out loud, and like sure, if someone wants to like say something, then I'm like, "Oh yeah," then I'll think about it that way. But I don't. Of course, I have thoughts in my head too. But
sure.
Definitely more external.
So what's interesting is Adam. I had said we should start a company called Twins and Son, and where that comes from is so Suzanne and I have 3 kids, Olivia, Jared, and Conrad. Olivia is also artisan. She's like Conrad, but introverted. So they're like twins too, except he talks much more. She talks all of it internally. But she's like a Jason-born Nikita. So she's kind of a badass. And she's always, she's very quintessentially artisan. Now, our middle one, Jared, he's a rational architect. Okay, so he's the same temperament as us, rational, but he's a different kind of rational, right? So, which is interesting because he's the same type as Adam, right? So Adam is like our son Jared. That's where the thing Twins and Son came from. But so let's break it down. So at the top level, you have people that we'd say the technical term is preempting. And what that means is they're the must lead kind of individuals. They take charge. They're initiating, they get to it first. They're fast. They're always on the move. They don't sit idly by. I mean, I remember seeing once at Target this woman walking really fast and this little girl following behind her. And she said, Mom, wait up. You're going too fast. And she says, "No, you catch up. You're going too slow." Right? And I mean, this woman, it was clear. She's preempting. She's leading. I didn't know which of the 4 because all I saw was she was preempting. So she could be a preempting artisan, a preempting guardian, a preempting idealist, or a preempting rational. What I could observe right away was, though, she was take charge, initiating, proactive. Now, the second row would be the contending types. Okay, we say they're similar. If you can think about must lead and must win, those are more similar. They're aggressive, preempting and contending. They sound more aggressive than the other ones we're going to get to, collaborating and accommodating. They sound more friendly, right? So the must win people, they are fierce. They are determined, they're willful, they make things happen, just like the must lead people. Except they often will say, we'll let them lead, but if we stop winning, then watch out, move over, leader. You're not really the leader. And then they go take charge, just like as though they were a must lead kind of individual, because they're driven by winning. Does that make sense? Right? So the must lead, must win, the preempting, contending are similar. And you can be also contending, whether you're artisan, guardian, idealist, or rational, right? And then when you go to the other half, you've got collaborating people. These are the people that must include. They want to bring others to the table. They want to really connect and synergize. They're inviting. The word speaks for itself. They're very collaborating. They want to partner with people. There's a sense of mutuality and being reciprocal. They really are trying to be cooperative with each other, okay, which is a bit different from the must lead and
like
must win.
Taking charge, yeah.
I mean, if collaborating will get you there to the result, then, the must win and must lead will do it.
Yeah.
But if not, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But the
Oftentimes
collaborating
you feel
folks,
like it slows you down and you're just like, no, I'm going to just plow through. Yeah.
We're just going to plow through. If so-and-so on the team is not working out, doesn't matter. We're just going to sideline them or kick them off the team or whatever it takes to win, whatever it takes to lead. But the collaborating folks definitely are much more, they're much more friendly. They're much more expressive. They want to bond over different things based on your temperament. Yeah. But that's, we call it the interactive role they take on. When they interact with others, they are collaborating. Finally, the last bottom row, we call them the accommodating
Our favorites.
types. Yes. I mean, you're married to one.
I know.
And we have...
so I haven't said my favorite.
Yes. Yeah. So the accommodating people, we say they must consider. They're the people who, instead of taking charge, they'll sit back and let others go first. In fact, they defer. They like to please. They like to be the last to go rather than the first. Okay. And so what they end up doing is they tolerate, they submit, they want others to have a chance first. They're more the behind the scenes kind of people. So I remember when we were first talking about this, Adam said one day, well, when do I get to make commands? And I said, well, Adam, it probably would stress you out to do that. And then I think you dove in and you said, well, Adam, were you not paying attention? And you said, Adam, if you heard what he said, we're made for each other. The fact that I give orders and you obey them is what makes our marriage work. And that's what makes our business partnership work too. And it's so true. He's the kind of individual where if he has to take charge, take the lead, he can do it. But it's
stressful for him. Yeah, and it's exhausting for him.
It's exhausting for him. Whereas for you, it's
easy.
It's easy for you. But if you have to wait and tolerate and accommodate for somebody, that's going to stress you out. That
stresses me out, yeah.
And so I think I brought in like some spiritual joke too. I said, I remember talking about how Jesus had asked his disciples, do you love me? And they say, yes, Lord, we love you. And he said, well, then obey my commands. I said, so in this equation, Adam, the way to think about it is, do you love Erica?
Then obey her commands.
Yes, Lord Erica. And after that, he said, oh gosh, he's so right. He does get stressed out. And so I recall after we had finished that discussion, you said, okay, Adam, go make the coffee. And then he went and made the coffee, which was a beautiful
And I do this with love and kindness. I'm not abusing my husband, but it just is what works, Yes.
Yeah. I mean, some people are, they're a glutton for punishment. And,
some people like to accommodate.
Yes, they like to accommodate. And so I remember the first time Jared had, kind of hung out, he obviously knew of you guys, but we hadn't really hung out, and he's now an adult. And so we're socializing in your kitchen. And I said, so what was it like meeting Adam? And he said, it was weird. And I said, well, tell me a little more. And he said, well, Adam, he's like older version me, or he's like, no, he said older version white me, or future me. And so then,
because it's his twin.
Yeah, that's his twin. They're both rational architects. They're both Albert Einstein-ish. I remember Jared as a young kid coming up to me around age maybe 7 or 8. He said, Dad, I'm a nerd, right? And I didn't know if I answered yes, right? He goes, no. In California, nerds are cool because they're like the billionaires.
So
and he goes,
cute.
look at Silicon Valley. And I said, yes, you are a nerd, right? And so Jared and Adam, they nerd out all the time. And so they find similarity there. And then when I said to him, well, what did you think about Erica? He said, scary. And he said, wow, she's quite commanding. And it's interesting to watch how Adam just obeys all of her orders. And so then fast forward a week, and we had started a new project, and Adam finished a website in a weekend. And Jared was looking at that, and he said, Adam did this? And I said, yes, he did. And he said, in one weekend? I said, yeah. I go, wow, he is so productive. He goes, how did he do that so fast? I go, his wife is Erica. And he said that he thought that you have him very well trained. And so, and he started actually doing some soul searching. He said, if I find my Erica, will I be as productive as him?
Yes.
I said, yes. You will not be a starving artist or a poet or philosopher. You will be a productive whatever you decide to do.
And now it's Operation Find Jared, his field marshal.
Yes, exactly. So there are some key differences. Where you both connect with each other is that since you're both rationals, you live in that land of the intellect, of analysis, of strategy. It's just more that in the interaction with each other and in the interaction with others, there's a reason why we say, hey, Erica should run for mayor, but we would never say that for Adam. Because Adam would probably be more like your strategic factor, your strategic advisor that looks at situations and gives all of the data.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the leader will sort of take charge and make decisions based on what they've been shown. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd love to have a few other real life examples. So let's take, for example, must leads. So I want to kind of break down how in the different temperaments those must leads would kind of lead and carry themselves and what the big differences are.
Yeah. So the people who must lead, the technical term was they're preempting. And you'll find this. Let's take an artisan, preempting artisan, a must lead artisan, and a must lead idealist. I'll give you an example of two leaders. Oprah Winfrey would be your must lead, preempting idealist. Anna Wintour, and for those of you that don't know Anna Wintour is the, at the time when The Devil Wears Prada came out, that was a depiction of Anna Wintour. She's the chief editor of Vogue. She's the queen of fashion. And they are clearly very different. If you remember the character in Devil Wears Prada, not like Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah,
okay?
very different.
Oprah Winfrey is very kind. She's more angelic, not like it wasn't, The Devil Wears Prada was called The Devil for a reason. I'm not saying Anna Wintour's the devil, but what I'm saying is that her kind of leadership is very different. Whereas Oprah Winfrey would be a benevolent leader. Anna Wintour would be a badass leader, right? There's a reason why, I don't know if you know this, but when Anna Wintour wears her sunglasses at a fashion show, I mean, it makes no sense. It's in a dark
indoors.
room, right? Why would somebody wear sunglasses there? And it's because people would look at her eye movements, right? And what was written on her face.
Just the subtle eye movements were enough to make a shift.
Exactly. Yeah. And people would panic if she had a look of disgust in her eyes. That meant that brand will not make it. That designer is done forever. Yeah, exactly. And so that's a very different kind of leadership. Like I remember with Oprah Winfrey once, we were at this business event, and a group of us leaders, those were of us in business leadership, we were entrepreneurs. We were interviewing the two co-presidents of the Oprah Winfrey Network. So it's Oprah and then the two co-presidents about how they make their decisions. All three of them, in my estimation, they're all idealists. Okay, and so when we asked, how do you make your decision given your leadership structure? This was the answer they gave. They said, we make our decisions in a community of oneness. And they said, because of our oneness, we make decisions out of love. And everybody's kind of wondering, where are they going to go with this? Because this is a leadership discussion. But what they said was, we all know that Oprah has a special calling on this planet. And we try to channel Oprah, which is kind of funny because it's the Oprah Winfrey Network, that it's a channel. But they showed us her prayer room. they said that Oprah lives in oneness with God, and we have oneness in our leadership, and out of that oneness and that love, we make our decisions. Now, as business leaders, our jaws dropped when we heard about that.
Yeah.
And it was such an interesting leadership structure or decision making process that I wrote about it because no company does that, but Oprah Winfrey does, and you would not find that, say, at Vogue, where the movement of an eye can impact everybody with a lot of fear. It's not oneness in love. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you'll find that depending on your temperament type, that will dictate how the must lead shows up. And that's going to be true for, let's say, you as a rational field marshal. You're a must lead, preempting rational. Margaret Thatcher is that type. And I remember once hearing about women and leaders, and she said it's very similar. If you don't know that you're a woman, you're probably not. And if you are asked if you're a leader and you're not sure, then you're probably not. And so, whether you're artisan, guardian, ideals, or rational, if you're that must lead type, you're going to be the take charge. You'll just do it differently because you have a different temperament. Does that make sense? That
makes sense. Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, awesome. Edward, thank you so much for all this insight.
Sure.
It's been so great. I hope this helps people out there. And if people want to take the assessment and find out what temperament they are, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, they can go right to KEIRSEY.com. KEIRSEY is spelled KEIRSEY. It's actually pronounced KEIRSEY, but every time we say KEIRSEY, people are like, "What? Did you say courtesy?" Or did you? and so we deliberately mispronounce it KEIRSEY.
Yeah.
KEIRSEY. You go right to the website and press the start button. You can take the assessment.
Awesome. We'll link to that in the show notes on the website as well. Thank you so much.
All right.